Oh,
Great. Richie, you want to read us in?
Yes, sir. Because of the continuation of the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being held electronically over the Zoom platform. It is authorized by the county's declaration of local emergency, the county's continuity of government ordinance, this authority's resolution, and Virginia Code section 2.23708.2 subsection A3. The public has real-time audiovisual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone. Everyone on the phone and attending via Zoom from the public is in listen-only mode. The following instructions apply to those who wish to speak during public comment. If you're listening on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature to notify the meeting facilitator. For those joining by telephone, please use *9 to indicate you would like to comment. Tell the board your full name and the magisterial district in which you reside before getting into the substance of your comment. If you don't know your magisterial district, provide a general location for your home or business. The street location or neighborhood name will suffice. Each speaker will be allowed no more than 3 minutes to comment. This meeting is being recorded. A copy will be posted on the county's website. So with that explanation, I will ask the board members to identify themselves and their general location. So we'll start with the chair, Bucky Walsh.
This is me. I'm at my home in Albemarle County.
Let's see, Vice Chair Waldo Jaquith.
I'm at my home in Stony Point.
I understand Trevor Henry is absent. Hearing, okay. Bill Fritz,
I'm here at my home in Charlottesville.
Supervisor Price,
I'm present from my home in beautiful rural Scottsville, Virginia. Thank you.
and Supervisor Andrews.
I'm here at home in Samuel Miller District of Albemarle County.
All right, Mr. Chair, we have a quorum, so we can proceed.
Thank you very much, Richie. I'm calling this meeting to order. Our first item of business here is the approval of the agenda. I trust everyone has a copy of the agenda. Are there any suggestions, recommendations, or can we move forward with this? Hearing nothing, I'll move that we approve this agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that's the agenda. So our first item after that is brief announcements by authority members. I have nothing. Jim, anything from you?
We have our first working session for the budget tomorrow, noon to 3.
Waldo?
No
Nope.
announcements for me.
Bill?
Nothing.
Donna?
Only to remind people to get your input and comments regarding redistricting for the county submitted. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And that'll take us on to our public comment section. This is the opportunity, as Richie said, if anyone who's participating on the call from the public would like to raise their hand to say something, please do so, and we'll give you 3 minutes to address the authority. I'll wait a few seconds, see if anything pops up. No, not seeing anything? Great. Then we'll move on to approval of the minutes from December 22nd and January 26th. Did everyone receive these minutes and have a chance to look at them?
Yes.
You know, I made one change to them. There was an error on the January minutes that referred to Mr. Walsh saying something, but it was actually Mike Culp. So I fixed that. It was just about his office keeping track of comments.
Content was the same, just the attribution changed.
Correct.
Okay. Any other no changes other than that?
None.
Well, then let me move to approve both of these sets of minutes. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved. And we'll get into old business, body 2021. Ooh, got our first field inspection report.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and thank you, Board. It's very exciting to talk about 21. We are moving along. Things are going at a brisk pace with Jones Mill Road and Old Garth Heights now accepting orders. So things are going well there. Later into February, both Tillman and Merriweather and Snow Hill Lane, all the way through Gilbert Station Road, unfortunately, are being moved up as displayed on this great update here. We're really working to try to convince Lumen and through Q.com to give us better mapping. It's definitely one of our big things. We feel like there should be more detail in these maps. There's lots of confusion based on where the projects start and stop. Those types of things could be answered. So we're looking forward to some sort of response to that. So we're definitely doing our best, and they've been very responsive. When we send them addresses, they'll come back with a yes, this one's in, no, this one's not quite there. Those types of issues have been coming up. The other thing just to mention is there has been improved response to outages. A lot of this is based on 21, but it's also in general. We have a new person within the Lumen organization. His name is Terrence Hingston, and he's working with us to accelerate any of our escalations. So if there's outages that are occurring, those can come to baao@albemarle.org, and we'll work with Terrence and make sure that those get effectively escalated. I think the next slide would be good here, if we could get there. So our next webinar, we're holding monthly webinars, and those have been well attended. I think each time we have one, there's numerous people on them. Different people show up different times. So it's been really good to hear community input on this project. I think it's very important to have lots of people out there, providing eyes and ears on the ground, those types of things. So our next webinar will be on March 4th. Next slide. So this new effort that we have, we hired Tommy Garland, and he is running around the county in the Nissan Leaf, which is a county pure electric vehicle, and visiting all of our project sites. We've extended that to where in certain situations where people have called in and said, we have lines hanging on trees, or trees hanging on lines, vice versa. Tommy's been great to go out and take a look at those as well. So we just wanted to thank Tommy for that, and know that he's doing a great job getting out there. And I think we have a couple of photographs here.
Yeah, I'm just going to offer. So this, we developed what we're calling the field report, and it's going to be a way to use our GIS software for Tommy when he's in the field to just go ahead and upload some images, write down some notes on what he's doing and what he's seeing. And so this is just sort of his first 2 weeks, is the different sites that he was able to visit. Some of these are Body 2021 sites. Some of the sites that he visited were, like Mike was saying, times when somebody reports that there's something that needs to be addressed, and it's in the field. And so Tommy will go out and take a look and see what we've got. We've got just a handful of pictures here from his work. And the main takeaways from that he sent in are that the project areas that are soon to launch, they have evidence of work being done. He's not seeing in some of the areas, like in Tillman in particular, he's seeing vaults that are fully fibered and properly spliced and ready to start distributing to homes. In others, he's seeing where fiber is feeding a box, but it's not yet to the point where that is being distributed more broadly. What we're hoping is that over the next few weeks, we will get him spun up on the Field Report app. And that way he'll be able to provide some more up-to-date content. And then by next month, he will be able to offer sort of a full report of what he did in the prior month. In this past month, we also had our technical focus group for the Body 2021 project. This was an effort to try to respond to the many technical oriented questions that we were receiving on our monthly webinars. Lumen actually offered that they would put together a team from their marketing, their network, and their engineering staff. And they would put them together as long as we got a list of questions together. So we're working, Mike, I was unfortunately sick, and so I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but Mike ably handled a small focus group of about 5 residents. And we were able to put together some topics, trying to refine those into some clear questions that we can present to Lumen. And then those are going to be fed back into the focus group to get a response from them. Sorry, my daughter is very excited. Those questions are hopefully going to also be fed back into our FAQs. So we've got an FAQ on the VADI 21 site. And Lumen is actually hosting its own FAQ. And so we're hoping that those questions will actually get fed back into those FAQs so that in the future, these are the sorts of questions that people ask about what sorts of capabilities they can do with the ONT or with the router that is provided. It gets really wonky, but it's the sort of question that if we can have a pat answer, at least specific to the Lumen side of this, then 1, we have those answers, but 2, we're sort of prepared for when we start working with Firefly or other fiber providers. We can go ahead and ask them that same set of questions and say, hey, these are things that people are going to want to know. So can you provide us those answers ahead of time? Once we've got those list of questions and responses, we'll also obviously share it with ABBA. Mike?
Thanks, Jason. I'm going to promote Dennis Reese from Firefly to panelists. Hold on a second. And Gary Wood. So I wanted to thank our gentleman from Civic Firefly. But before I do that, are there any questions about the 21 update? We kind of rolled right through there. Just want to check with everybody to see if there's any questions on body 21.
I don't have a question. I just want to make an observation that this is great. Like, I really appreciate, like, it's ideal for me to be able to see photos of the work being done, knowing that Tommy's out there comparing the reports that we're getting with the actual work that's being done. I really appreciate that there was that opportunity for folks to ask really technical questions. I know I'm going to appreciate having the answer to that. Those are the questions that I don't bother asking because I feel it would be annoying, but I'd really like to know the answer. And I suspect they answer the sort of questions that I asked that I would have wanted to ask about that. So I really appreciate what y'all are doing with this to meet the, I think, very reasonable demands of members of the public and of board members like me who want to know that the work that's happening, the work that we're being told about is actually the work that's happening. So thank you very much for this update. I really look forward in particular to hearing this update at every future board meeting.
Thanks, Waldo. Appreciate it. All right, so I think it was today, the annual report, community report for Albemarle County came out, and here is the blip from there that shows, you know, this is a major project, and we're so thankful to have CVEC and Firefly working with us on it. You know, it's a long project. It's 3 years, starting here in the spring of 22 and moving through 25, and I think we're going to get monthly updates from this group. So I'm going to turn it over to Gary and Dennis to see if there's anything new on the horizon or if we're, you know, waiting until the March update. Either way, let us know what's going on. Thanks for joining us, Gary and Dennis. You guys want to unmute or?
Mike, can you hear me now? No?
Yes.
You can?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Very good. I was going to actually let Dennis, Dennis, if you want to unmute and kind of go over the highlights, and then I'll say a few things and wrap up if you want to hit the highlights of where we are.
Yeah, so, you know, good afternoon. We're currently, of course, already providing some service in Albemarle, and we're working to here this spring and summer. We're going to be completing our construction in Whitehall and Red Hill area on this for the customers that are in the CVEC power utility. because that project was already in the works. That's part of the original Firefly and CVEC build. So we're going to continue to work toward that and try to get that completed by mid-year, and those connections will continue for potentially a couple months after that. And then, I think I sent you a map, Mike. Hopefully you got that. That shows the Firefly CVEC footprint, and also shows where we're going to be building as part of this RISE project in the county. I guess I'll turn it over to Gary and give an update about the RISE project and where we're at with that, or the Batty 2022.
All right. Well, thank you, Dennis. Let me see. I was going to see if I could share the map, but that's fine. You've seen the map before, so you're aware we're covering a pretty good area that with this project will go outside of the CVEC footprint, and we'll be building in areas that are served electrically by Appalachian Power Company down in the Southern County, Dominion Energy, and also a little bit along the northern edge that's served by Rappahannock Electric Co-op. With each one of those parties, we've already started some work. We are still in the process of signing final agreements with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District and the county to have the formal contracts in place for the VADI work, but we've received approval from Department of Housing and Community Development to start moving forward with the work that they term to be soft costs, which are design costs, field engineering and field data gathering, and also make-ready work. So with Rappahannock Electric, we have started doing the design out of the Standardsville substation for Rappahannock, which will be the northwestern area. It reaches down into Albemarle, north of our Central Virginia Electric Whitehall service area, and borders that. We've started doing the design work on that. The design work's the first piece before we turn over some work from Make Ready to Rappahannock in that area. For Dominion, we've already submitted our preliminary layout for their backbone for their middle mile program. They are doing some field work to verify and determine any additional information they need to do a final design in the county along the entire route for Dominion. I am not sure of their timeline for when that project will be submitted to the SCC for approval, and hopefully we'll have more information on that to tell you at a future meeting. But we have started work on the Dominion area. And then on the Appalachian Power area, we've been given the approval to begin make-ready work. And within the next few weeks, I anticipate we'll start loading into the Appalachian Power Company online portal for pole attachments, the list of the poles that we'll first be on down in the southern part of the county. And that'll probably take up about maybe half of that Appalachian Power Company area will be in the first project. I think we're going to end up separating out and feeding about half of it from our Red Hill substation and another half out of Schuyler. At one point, we looked at putting a new HUD in, but I think we may get by without it. We're still doing some analysis with our preliminary design. We may go back and end up putting that HUD in at Keene, but they're working on that the other day. Should have an answer on that pretty soon. So work is moving forward in all three areas to begin this big project, even though we don't have the contracts formally in place. We anticipate those contracts will be wrapped up possibly in March, but certainly in April. And we'll just continue forward with the work we have at that point. And as we firm some of these dates up and get more information on the Make Ready schedule from Appalachian Power and Rappahannock, we can provide a schedule to the county to let you know when we'll be in the areas building fiber and then connecting folks.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, thank you all. What I'll do for the next meeting is have the maps up. So that'll make it a lot more easy to talk about each of those different electric providers and how they play in. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to color them in as done. That's my goal. Get her done. All right. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Dennis.
All right, thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having us on, and good work by the Broadband Authority. Y'all are seeing some progress across the county. So good job, folks.
And to you.
Okay. Onto this. Okay, I'll take it. This has been a really tough couple of weeks, three to 4 weeks, working through since January 12th, trying to have a committal from Lumen to help us with some known issues throughout the county. There's a public witness hearing in front of the State Corporation Commission, and this is mainly in regard to the Lumen transfer of assets over to Brightspeed. Supervisor Price, as chair of the Board of Supervisors, will be providing testimony during the session tomorrow. It's at 10 a.m. It's streamed live. They're no longer having the testimony done in person, but each person will be sworn in and provide some testimony. So we're working in that direction, and it's been a good effort. I think there's been some positive response, and hopefully things will continue to move in a positive direction. Jason, you've done a lot of work on here. Do you want to step in and talk a little bit about what's on the next couple of slides? Or
Yeah, a few things to note. The ABBA letter made 3 specific requests. The first was that Lumen make sufficient efforts to remedy current service disruptions. Second, that Connect Holding commit to sufficient investments to remedy network infrastructure deficits. And this is degradation of the copper network that has caused so many of these problems. And then lastly, that Connect Holding commit to not retire copper infrastructure until sufficient replacement is available. A lot of the of what we've asked for was echoed in SCC Associate Deputy Director Cherie King's testimony, which was pre-filed for these proceedings. In particular, they recommended that the SCC require renewed attention on restoration of service, a remediation plan in the event of failure to meet standards, and a measurable and verifiable commitment from Connect Holding regarding the maintenance, repair, and replacement of the copper network in CenturyLink ILEX, and to be provided within 6 months after the transfer. The Board of Supervisors wrote their own letter. I hope the colors are not too difficult to follow, but some of the requests within the Board of Supervisors mirrored requests in the ABBA letter, and there were some additional requests, including an increased oversight and reporting regarding restoration of service times, and a requests to provide credit to residents charged for services during any unreasonably prolonged outages. All of these are concerns that we heard during the work session and prior to the work session and after the work session. There was a response that was provided by Lumen. The response is reflective of a settlement that is in negotiations between the OAG staff and the joint parties. And the key takeaways from the letter and the settlement is that they are committing to increased oversight. So they are going to be submitting very frequent reports to the SCC about the status of their rehabilitation of their network. They have committed to rehabilitating 58 different cables in Albemarle County, many additional cables outside of the area. And they have made some changes to their customer service efforts to, as Mike said, pointed out earlier, to remedy a lot of this backlog of issues that people have been facing. We've had a good experience so far in working with the new point of contact, and that seems to be the approach that they're going to take moving forward. The fact that this is now part of the settlement agreement means that this is an agreement essentially being reached to include Connect Holding. So it is an agreement that will withstand the transfer of these assets moving forward. Where they did not offer any firm commitment is in that point number 4, commitment to not retire these assets so long as residents desire copper telephony as a means to access 911. That remains something to be addressed. As Mike said, the testimony, the hearing for this case is tomorrow and Thursday. Tomorrow is public testimony. And then on Thursday, there will be a administrative hearing. So that's just the parties involved will go through their process, and then we'll await the determination. But from guidance from the OAGs, it does sound like that the settlement agreement, which is publicly available. If you guys go to we're happy to share the link for the SEC docket and you can take a look at it. It does sound like the SEC's the settlement agreement is likely to be amenable and is going to be supported by the OAG's office. We're happy to answer any questions.
I'll just call up again. I really appreciate what y'all are doing here. This is another case in which what we're able to do as a county has really just been taken up. This is not something that I envisioned that we'd be able to get into a couple of years ago. And here we are playing, I think, a valuable role in the process of the SEC considering this proposal, and we're able to influence that for the better for Albemarle County residents. So thank you very much for your work on this.
We appreciate that. And I want to, because I know Mike won't do it, I want to say that Mike has definitely been spearheading this for years now, along with Supervisors Price and Malik. And the work, it truly is a privilege that we have been able to do this work in order to improve the outcomes for residents in Albemarle County. And it has to be said, this is having an impact outside. There are going to be 5 additional county chairs that are going to be speaking at the hearing. 4 counties are actually included in the Lumen transition plan, I believe is what they were calling it, which means that more than just Albemarle County is going to reap the benefits of what the concessions that they're making.
I don't think there's going to be any question, but that the CenturyLink customers in the county will benefit from and have their quality of their service somewhat improved by. It remains to be seen how much that will be.
Chair Price.
Thank you. And I just want to make clear, Jason and Mike have been the ones who have really done all of this and have been instrumental in helping to coordinate the 5 other counties, which has a geometric progression increase in the value of what we're going to be contributing. So it's really the 2 of you who have done all of the work on this. I'm the beneficiary of that through the opportunity to testify tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anything else on this topic?
I think that's it, Chair Walsh. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. It's been somewhat tough. Let's just put it that way, simply. But moving on.
No.
So I will take on the financial report, and there are no changes. So easy part of my job this evening, since we haven't, the way that we're set up is we've got funding set aside for 21, which is the Lumen project that's going on. But since they haven't expended their contribution, they're not invoicing us yet. So we're working in that direction. It'll probably be later in the spring, early summer before we'll start seeing a drawdown on the ABA contribution to VADI 21. And then of course we've got the big commitment with VADI 22. So that one we'll go through, and hopefully that one will start in the summer too. And I think Dennis Reese and Gary heard me say that. So if there's any way possible we can get this going. It's burning holes in our pockets, fellows. So, all right, enough with that.
Thank you, Mike, for encouraging the responsible expense of county funds.
Yes, sir.
Can we move on to the broadband accessibility and affordability report?
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys. The couple of topics we wanted to touch on first, so run through the affordability programs again, some updates on ACP and Iepp, as well as the future Acp Bridge, and then a little talking on the rulemaking and analysis. I had actually hoped that Kimberly Gardner would be able to join us from finance to discuss this a little bit more, but it doesn't appear that she's on. So ACP in Albemarle County, I previously,
Jason, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
But for the benefit of all the attendees on the call, explaining the acronyms at least once would be really good.
Absolutely. I'm sorry about that. I should have included another slide. So the ACP is the Affordable Connectivity Program. This is the evolution of last year's emergency broadband benefit. It takes the broadband benefit, which to eligible households, the eligibility threshold was very broad. From $50 a month, it brings it down to $30 a month, but it maintains and actually somewhat broadens eligibility. The program is now a permanent program funded behind $14 billion from allocated by Congress. And I had previously told you guys that we were estimating under EBB that we had about 800. We were actually able to start seeing some county specific data, which is great. And so we were off by about 100. In November, we had 698, which represents 8% of residents in poverty in Albemarle County. The most recent data was from February 1st, shows that we've climbed tremendously. So ACP signups in the county as of February 1st are 1,146, which brings us up to about 13% of residents in poverty. We had a big boost from the Department of Social Services and Albemarle County Public Schools to try to push that number up. We are hoping to do more. We would love to see this number creep ever closer to 100% of eligible households. As I previously mentioned, our estimate is about 8,000 eligible households. So we're at about 1/8 of that figure right now. And
I'm sorry, Jason, can I ask something about that last slide?
Yes.
You have talked about both households and individuals. The numbers we're seeing here, the raw numbers and the percentages, I suppose, is that individuals or households?
That is individuals. I tried to break the data down so that I could get for households. And unfortunately, there's just a really big delta between the administrative data that we have and then the census data that we have. And so based on administrative data, I can tell you we expect 8,000 eligible households. Based on raw data, I'm not going to venture to do some mental math, but we are working on two different figures. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Thank you. I appreciate knowing what the numbers I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason.
So a little bit of mapping just to give you guys some idea. So when we were just looking at EBB data and those 700, this is kind of the spread of what it looks like in terms of percent of poor residents. So top counties or top municipalities are like Franklin in Southwest Virginia, Emporia, Danville is actually doing exceptionally, had been doing exceptionally well, sort of comparable in our region. Again, Danville, very good. Augusta, also quite good. And we were around 8-9%. As of February, that's a lot more red on the map, which is great to see. Franklin and Emporia still kind of near the top. We've had a lot of shuffling in other areas. Danville again is doing exceptionally well. And then this is the same map, but now just looking at that change. So it's kind of the biggest movers. And as you can see, we are respectively climbed a little bit. Again, we'd love to see that number really, really start to climb. The guidance that this gives us is to now start to reach out to some of the municipalities that were the fastest movers, like Martinsville, Petersburg, Franklin, and Stanton for that matter, and try to talk to them about what it is that they have done that has had such a big impact. It might be community groups working in the area that have done the work. There might be other staff work that was done. And so we just want to reach out to some of these counties and find out what they've been doing and see if we can implement similar efforts here. The IEPP, this is a Comcast specific program. Actually, let me just go back. Does anybody have any questions about ACP?
I would just like to make a language suggestion that they're just described as eligible as opposed to poor.
Thank you. That's a good, yep. Anything else? All right. So IEPP is the Internet Essentials Partnership Program. Comcast has a layered approach to their affordability programs. The Internet Essentials Program is open to anybody and is a $10 or $30 a month cable package. It is, they have their own eligibility criteria, but it mirrors the ACP eligibility criteria. So anybody that's eligible for one is eligible for the other. They also have the partnership program. And this is a great tool for rapidly onboarding people, because instead of having to wait for ACP eligibility verification, there are sort of other end arounds that a municipality or a local partner can use to accelerate implementation and the timeline of getting somebody signed up. Currently, the county has an IEPP running with ACPS. They've got about 80 enrollees right now, and we are actually working with them to transfer their existing IEPP over to our administration and funding. We had submitted an application to have our own. That has been lost in certain legal limbo for a while. And it is, in discussing it with Comcast and our finance department, it is becoming clear that it would be a quicker route for us to actually just go ahead and take over the existing one. And so we are going to work through the legal pathways for that with ACPS. But we are also planning, even if that's not going to happen in the short term, we are planning on going ahead and funding theirs moving forward. So that way that is not on their ticket and is using the funds that we already have allocated to affordability. Anything on that? The ACP Bridge. So there was a deduction in the value of the benefit from EBB to ACP. We've gone from $50 a month to $30 a month. I've got a lovely 8-page white paper you guys, I'm happy to distribute, that talks about the reasons why $50 is really much closer to what households ought to be receiving as a benefit. Exempting those service providers that have affordability programs that are well aligned with ACP and thus provide a free option at $30 a month. There are an awful lot of households that are going to either want or need to spend more. And so with that in mind, we have been working to develop a subsidy that will be in addition to whatever someone's receiving from ACP. ACP enrollment is basically the eligibility for our program. We put together a stakeholder group with the Department of Social Services and Finance, and we came up with a plan that's going to involve MOUs with individual service providers and an agreement on their part to provide service credits on our behalf, on the behalf of enrollees. And then they will invoice us to fund those service credits, to pay for those service credits on a quarterly basis. We were really worried that this was going to be kind of a big push to try to convince service providers to participate, because it does move some of the administrative cost onto them. And we are delighted to hear from two of the largest service providers that they are interested and are going to be working with us to reach agreements. This is something that Mike and I had hoped that we could launch something by February, which is the transition date between EBB and ACP. And I don't think we're obviously not going to hit that, but it is very, very exciting to know that when we are able to launch this, it will hopefully be with two of the largest service providers in our area. And we hope that that'll be enough motivation to convince all of the other providers in our area to participate. We don't have a breakdown for how many of those 1,100 households are which service provider. And so we're sort of working in a black box. We might get to the end of one road and discover that there are no enrollees for us to sign up to this program. But whatever it takes for us to find people to provide this, that need this benefit, that's what we're going to engage in.
Jason, do you have a sense of what the budget for this is going to end up being?
So we have some rough numbers that we put together mainly to see to plan for next year's budget, to see what it would take to fund a program like this. And part of our challenge right now, we have funding. The Board of Supervisors generously allocated $250,000 to our office for affordability programs, of which we have been able to spend exactly $0. And so we have funding available. And at this point, it is just a matter of finding a pathway to get the money out the door. We have budgeted planned for another $250,000 for next year. If we were to take, and this is top of my head because I don't have my notes pulled up in front of me, but if we were to take a 10 to 15% increase rate after starting at about 10% of where we were in terms of ACP households, it would be a long time before we got to $250,000. However, one thing to note is we are talking about a supplement that isn't going to apply to every single one of the ACP beneficiaries. It really is targeting those people for whom the $30 a month plan with Comcast is not sufficient, or individuals where the plan that they have available to them is going to be more than $30 in general. And so we're not going to know for a little while, and we're hoping that this is something that we can work out with our service providers. We're not going to know for a little while how many people this is going to impact. But I think the first step for us, and that's why I emphasized ACP at the beginning, is getting that ACP number as high as we can get it to make sure that when we cast our net, there's already lots of fish in the sea.
Okay, just back of the matchbook figuring here, it seems like about 1,000 households are covered by a $250,000 annual grant. So,
right, and we are not at when we first did our figures, that was with an ACP estimate. I'm sorry, an EBB estimate of 800, and so like I said, I think that we've got a ways to go before we hit that cap, and there are going to be people that roll off of ACP. With any benefit like this, the hope and goal is that people will, people's circumstances will change and they will no longer need that particular benefit. And so we just need to be able to keep track of people as they come on and people as they come off to make sure that we're spending this money wisely.
Yeah, thank you.
And Treasury and Rulemaking, I believe we brought this up briefly at the last meeting. So the Treasury Department has issued its final rule with regards to ARPA spending. And the highlights there is that they shifted the internet speeds that ARPA funded projects should target from 100 over 20 to 100 over 100. They also in some ways loosened the criteria, in some ways clarified the criteria for what types of projects should be considered. They suggest looking at areas that demonstrate a lack of access, a lack of reliability, or low income. It's important to note that this isn't tied to qualified census tracts or opportunity zones or other such targeting that has been done in the past when it comes to low income investments. This really is up to the municipality to decide, or the organization that's participating, to decide how they're going to determine what qualifies as lacking access outside of 100, or what qualifies as lacking reliability, or what qualifies as low income. And we have the first thing that we noted is that it provides the ability to now look at the development area as a target for additional funding and projects. It allows us to look at areas that previously we would have said, well, there is a provider that is providing 100 over 25, and so we're not going to consider those areas. And then it becomes a question of what is the most appropriate way for us to target these funds. And I believe that moves very ably into new business. Mr. Chair, if you wanted to introduce that topic.
Well, before we jump there,
Uh-huh.
the biggest opportunity that I see coming out of this is the burden upon us and your office to make sure we've got a good idea of where all of these places are. It'll be easier to sort out where to go first if we know where all the choices are.
And so to that, we are in the beginnings of putting together a map that takes into account some demographic factors related to income, as well as hopefully we are going to be able to include some data out of DHCD that will give us a better sense of the coverage areas for all of the service providers in our area and speeds. And that's sort of the distinguishing feature that will allow us to come up with a rubric. And I think that rubric is going to have to come with a little bit of guidance from ABBA, and it's some of the criteria that we're thinking about are some of the things that Mr. Culp wanted to bring up in the new business. But it gives us the ability to just consider what are the areas that we should be considering and how should we be considering. So, to be quite frank, my part of it, my contribution of actually putting together some demographic data and putting it on some pretty maps, that's actually pretty easy compared to how do we take into account community interest and community projects, economic development. Mr. Jakewith, sorry, Mr. Walsh, go ahead.
Just continue on my thought. I hear some of those layers you were talking about in terms of economic need, et cetera, but of course our mission is to get broadband to everybody. And so when someone moves the milestone or the goalpost for where broadband is, then we're back in the saddle trying to get broadband to everybody. We may prioritize where we go first, but we want to get it to all of them. So we got to identify all the folks. Aldo?
I'm just trying to figure out how this works. That I absolutely appreciate the increased standards. I love that 100 is symmetrical, but this is coming after the VADI process in which we've already submitted our areas. And I'm thinking in particular of CVAC Firefly having said, we are going to even cover the areas covered by DSL already, even though that doesn't qualify as broadband. Well, now, or that does qualify as broadband, but now the work that they're doing would be subsidized, except VADI would have to change their rules retroactively. So I'm not clear on how this will work.
Mike, you want to handle that one?
But Waldo, let me take a stab at this. There's a lot of places that are not going to be covered in the 5,379 households that Firefly is going to run to, and then the households that they're passing by. There's still lots and lots of households not covered, some of which have one or another broadband standard that are above 25.3, but maybe well shy of 100.
Right.
So they're not in the project. What I hear is new projects.
Yeah. I'll step in a little bit, Chair, if okay.
Sure.
It's the donut holes. There's donut holes around, and I'll be specific, around the digital subscriber line access modules out there that have the capability of serving 82 or 25.3 or whatever. All of those are now, due to the Treasury rules, now eligible for additional funding. VADI will not play a role in this. This is all the federal funds. So it's a good opportunity to accelerate projects in the development area. So at the same time we're extending fiber access in the rural areas, the same type of work is happening within our development areas for those that don't have fiber connectivity. Waldo's got a quizzical look on his face, so maybe I said something
No,
incorrect there.
no, I'm just thinking through what y'all are saying further. And
Yeah.
so it feels to me like a couple of things come to mind. One is that like there'll have to be a VADI 2023.
Yes, there will be.
Only if further funding is made available, or if not all of it was drawn down for VADI 2022. And then also, if I were Firefly, I would not cover any of those DSL circles at no subsidy if you have cause to believe that a subsidy might come along in a year or so. So this seems like it complicates things in what's ultimately is a good way, but might be a little confusing for a bit.
Bill?
This is long overdue to do this update. I'm frustrated also. I think Waldo and I share the frustration of why wasn't this done earlier? And now we have these areas. And you commented, Mr. Walsh, that these are going to have to be new projects in the future. It's just, it's something that I've been concerned about of we're bringing gigabyte speeds to the rural areas where they had no service, and now we're leaving areas that had been served sort of behind. So it's this weird mishmash. So that's all. Just observation.
We did ask DHCD to raise their 25.3 standard to, something we felt was more realistic, but they didn't go there.
Right. I'm glad to see it finally done. It's just, I wish it had been done a year ago.
Yeah, agreed.
Frustration. I'm just expressing frustration. Sorry.
Well, Waldo, is your hand back up again? Okay.
Sorry, I've gotten used to a version of Zoom that will automatically lower it after you speak, and now I'm spoiled.
All right, Mike, you want to take us into new business?
Oh, just one quick side
Sure.
note on this. Mr. Wood had his hand up, and since he's so involved with 22, if he wants to make a comment, I'm asking the chair to give Mr. Wood the floor, if that's possible.
Absolutely. We'd be delighted to hear from Gary.
Go ahead, Gary. Mr. Wood.
Thank you. I was just going to address the point that was just brought up about those donut holes, particularly in the southern part of the county. And our natural route to run the fiber is through those. So we will be serving the ones that we encapsulate the entire DSLAM area. And we will be serving those, and we won't go back. If other funding becomes available, we'll certainly seek it, but we're not going to hold off building that to wait for those funds, because they're fairly small areas and within our design already. There are areas at the edge of the design where we do not go all the way around it that are at 25.3, and those are areas that could come up later for a project. So there are some areas in Albemarle County that would still qualify for future projects, but the ones that we have completely surrounded, we're just going to build through them and provide service in those areas. All right, thanks.
Thank you very much,
Thanks for letting me.
Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, Mike.
Okay, new business. All right, thank you, Chair. Yeah, Jason and I particularly, and it's probably apparent to everyone else that specifically for 22, body 22, everyone is concerned mightily about the length of time it's going to take for deployment of fiber to happen here in Albemarle County, where our neighboring counties seemingly are doing much better, meaning they're proceeding and they'll be at 85% before we get to 70%. Those numbers I'm just bringing up out of the air. But we are doing great work. There's no question that we're doing great work, but I think our community deserves a little more attention on some of the things that are going on. There's an evaluation criteria of projects that we should look at that include digital equity and inclusion. There's areas of the county where we know there's pockets of demographics that have been overlooked in the past by prior telecommunications agencies, companies, however you want to do. But we're going to take a quick little glimpse at some of the things that we've been hearing. And this may deserve a separate group, and I'm just bringing this up for conversation at this point, not making any recommendations, just bringing it up for conversation. Next slide. So, things to think about. What are some examples of areas of the county that require government support more than others? How do we know that those areas would qualify for some sort of rubric that would come up? And when an area is chosen for additional funding, if it's through the American Rescue Plan Act or the infrastructure bill or however, how do we verify that the funds that are coming from the federal government supersede that we've anticipated receiving from the Virginia Telecommunication Initiative? Is it possible to give the money back to the state and use federal money instead? So we talked a little bit about the donut holes in the DSL areas without funding. The question becomes, do we wait as the rural areas are completed? The people who've been waiting at the rural areas for them to see work going on in a more development area, it may be upsetting or something like that. So there's a lot of things that we have to get into here to understand, if we do additional funding through the American Rescue Plan Act, how does that impact our other projects? And then we continue to hear the need for improved cellular coverage. So building additional towers or doing some small cell deployments as fiber is deployed to the rural areas. How can we use the American Rescue Plan Act funds to complete tower sites or do a small cell construction that helps bring along the need for people to have mobile access to 911 and other valuable services. Next one, get through this quickly. So we've been talking about, and this is just discussion again, we've been talking about these types of evaluation criteria. And Jason coming on has really helped me get more specific, and we're going to be putting together some sort of way to look at how to spend this money. And the reason that I'm putting this in these terms is that the Broadband Accessibility and Affordability Office is putting in a request to add to our budget by a number of $2 million using American Rescue Plan Act funds again as part of our FY23 budget request. So outside of the Broadband Authority, the Broadband Office is putting together a request for funding to do these types of projects. So next one. So here are some examples. It's every week another request comes in. St. John Road has been a long-term project of mine, trying to figure out how to get service along that specific area in Keswick. We're hearing more and more people concerned about public safety near Whitehall. We have an active project in Walnut Creek Park that we're hoping to build a cell tower site or a wireless service provider may be interested in building a cell site in that specific area. And then all of these DSL only areas, they're seeing fiber come to them. Their rural neighbors are getting fiber, and they're coming to us and saying, hey, my service is really bad. It doesn't look like it's going to be improved. Can you include my area, DSL only area, in any of your fiber builds? And then most recently, we had a request from the Ravenna Water and Sewer Authority to build out to their locations in the rural areas. So there's been a request, is it possible for Ravenna Water and Sewer Authority to use American Rescue Plan Act funds to build out to their specific sites? I've got the MUC listed here, but if that were to be funded, then it would seemingly include the multitude of communities around that area. So we're really looking for input. We'll probably do something with the community and have them talk with us about how best to go forward and use these funds, but it's all determinant on the Board of Supervisors approving our budget request. So I wanted to get that out there. I know it's only February, but it's certainly something that has been discussed within our grant office here at Albemarle County, and the broadband office is anxious to work on these types of things. I don't know if there's another slide, Jason, but I think that's, the last thing that we would do is, as we've done every year, it seems like, is we would put if the funding were approved, we would put together an RFP and just look at different ways to get the funds out there and really get this going. And that's it. Thanks for the board's time. I know I took a little too much time on that, but appreciate the welcome here, and maybe we'll work on this together as our funding gets approved. So thanks.
Mike, you're
Thanks.
thinking about not just big things, but also forward-looking things and rethinking how we do things. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Waldo. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for the update, Mike. It's good to
Thank
know
you.
where you're going, where you're headed, and for a change, how we can help you.
I see. Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. That gets us to the end of our agenda. Is there any other business that anyone has? Looking around. You guys don't want to linger for another half hour or so? Okay, good. I'm liking it. Then I would be delighted to hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Well, before I declare us adjourned, I'll remind you that our next meeting is Tuesday, the 22nd. It'll just be the same time on your calendar as this one. So another Tuesday meeting. I thank you all very much. And the meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
A good meeting, folks.
Thank you.
Mike
Thank
and
you.
Jason. Mike and
Thank you
Jason,
all.
I'll be with you first thing in the morning on that testimony. So
Perfect.
thanks for the update.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.